Hey guys, welcome back to The Works. Just wanted to give you a couple quick updates today before we get started. Today's guest is Scott Goldberg, the director of The Forest Hills. We're going to be talking to him about what it was like to work with Shelley Duvall. Super cool, really exciting interview. Of course, as always, if you want to listen to these episodes in full before they're released on YouTube, become a member on our Patreon page at patreon.com/Scareworks. You'll be able to hear these episodes in full. You'll listen to them on Spotify. You could get exclusive early access content that you can't get anywhere else on YouTube. So definitely check that out. And of course, please like and subscribe. We always appreciate that. So thank you very much for that. There are a couple things I did want to talk about. So first one being, as you guys have noticed, I have moved away from doing movie reviews, and here's the real reason why. Honestly, I very much want to be working in this industry, as much as I can be. And I know how difficult it is to get these movies off the ground. I know the struggle it is to actually make these movies, and I wouldn't want to tear down an artist I might work with, at some point, So, that's just really where I feel I'm at with that right now. With that said, though, I will still recommend movies that I think were awesome. And honestly, this summer has been a really good summer for horror. As we wrap out the summer right now, you have The Substance in theaters. We had Alien Romulus this summer. I did really want to talk about The Substance, though, because it got me excited. So The Substance, I just recently saw. This stars Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley. It is directed by Coralie Farge. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Her direction is really the star of the show. I know there's been a lot of talk about Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley's performances, which are both awesome, but the star of the show is the director here, and the framing of the shots, the influences, is really awesome. It was just quite a stunning achievement, honestly, from a new filmmaker. You could see the Kubrick influences, the Cronenberg influences in virtually every shot. This is a very cine-literate director. This is somebody who really took their time on this project. You could tell the detailed work going into everything. There's a lot of great cinematography in this movie, particularly I think in a couple key scenes in the beginning. So let me actually describe what the movie's about first. So The Substance is about Demi Moore is this fading fitness coach, TV personality, jazzercise type deal, and this pig of a producer, who is not so subtly named Harvey, tells her that at 50, it's over. It being her career in show business. And Demi Moore's character, named Elizabeth Sparkle, doesn't want to hear this. And she is given this advertisement for a drug called The Substance, which promises her the ability to be young again, and the ability to be physically perfect and beautiful, and maybe unattainably so. And, like I said, the performances go there. This is a movie that is unafraid to be very in your face and aggressive and surreal, but very, very, very cool. You will enjoy this movie. I guarantee it. If you're a horror fan, at least. It's a bit gross. It's a little bit gross. Just a little bit. I was told I couldn't eat while I was watching this movie. I did. I was fine. But maybe not like gushers. So, I really do recommend The Substance. I think everybody should go check it out because it's really a film that harkens back to a lot of older films that are great, and you don't really see those influences in mainstream cinemas these days. I do highly recommend going to check out The Substance. It's probably my favorite horror movie of the year so far. Although, if you couldn't tell by my shirt, I'm obviously an Alien fan. So, for those that are just listening, my shirt is an Alien shirt that says "Learn to Give Hugs." All of that out of the way, I really enjoyed The Substance. Go check that out. I'm not gonna give a grading to it, but I mean, obviously, I liked it. So I hope you take my word for it. I hope you go. I hope if you like it, didn't like it, if you have thoughts on it, share them in the comments. Let me know what you think. Yesterday I went to the Cinema Arts Center, and they were actually taking a tally of how many people walked out of the movie. So obviously not all audiences are loving it. It might be too much for some people. I am really curious to see what people are thinking about it. So yeah, that's really what my thoughts on The Substance were. And now let's move on. So I'm sure if any of you are following me on social media, or if you've been following the podcast just a little bit, or maybe if you've even been on scareworks.net, which if you haven't, please go check us out, sign up for our newsletter. So I have been working on a new project. This started kind of out of nowhere. This was not the plan this year, but this project is happening, and I've been having a great time with it, and I hope you guys are going to have a great time with it also. So I was on a film set not that long ago, a couple months back. I was doing sound, and in between shots, I was writing down some lyrics. I had always written lyrics, but it was never really like the game plan, It's just like when I wasn't writing scripts, I could write lyrics. It was easier, It was quicker. So I'm writing these lyrics, and over time, I guess I had written a lot of songs that I had no plans to do them, I just liked these lyrics, and I didn't really know what to do with them. But I'm on this set, and ironically enough, the BTS photographer walks over and starts making small talk with me, and thank God she did, because she happened to know a music producer, and that music producer is Equus. I've been working with him for the past couple months. There was a band that I wanted to start in high school, or while I was in high school, called Protest Art. And I have 2 demos available for that on YouTube if you want to go check it out. The band never really got off the ground, but I had still kept writing these lyrics, and when Equus and I started talking, the opportunity presented itself that he would be down to make an album with me, and I said, sure, let's do it. Let's go for it. The opportunity is not going to come again. So let's just take it. And, my initial thinking was if it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't go anywhere. This wasn't the plan. It's just something I really wanted to do artistically and get this kind of out. But I have to say, guys, look, the genre that we're doing is bizarre and kind of new, and I don't even know if it fits cleanly into one genre. I would classify it as rage rave. I am the vocalist. He is the backing beats that we have been doing, and we are protest art. So, what is protest art? What is protest art? So basically, the style of music is, again, rage rave. It's kind of like heavy metal vocals over an EDM style band. Or like a electronic band, because it's not dance music per se, it's just rave music. But look, I have to say, without tooting my own horn too much, I'm really enjoying them. The songs that we have so far. I'm honestly really excited about what we've recorded. And I can't wait to show you guys this project. There is a YouTube channel for it, and there is a separate Patreon for it. You could go to Protest Art on YouTube, which I will have in the description below, and also the Protest Art Patreon, which will also be in the description as well. On the Protest Art Patreon, you're able to get exclusive early access to album covers, background about these songs, about what they mean, about where I was when I wrote them. So definitely check that out. I have a new song dropping this weekend called On TV. Be sure to check that out. It's the longest song that we've It's the longest song that we've done for this record so far, which is also kind of exciting. We had an awesome guitar player on this track as well. I think this song has some real potential to kind of get stuck in your head. It's very catchy, which I always feel, a little excited over. I mean, like, I just feel like it's a word worm. So hopefully it will be a word worm for you guys also. Like I said, I'm really excited about this project. I have a music video that I shot for it. The music video is called New Normal. That is on the Protest Art YouTube page as well. So definitely check that out. We shot that music video at the beautiful studio, Drake Media Studios in Melville. We were so lucky to get that place. It was such a cool location, and we had a bunch of extras turn out for that. That was really exciting also. So the place that we shot at happens to also host a TV show, the Donna Drake TV show, which she has invited me on. So I don't know if that airs live or if there are going to be that's going to be pre-recorded. So I will keep you guys up to date on that. I will give you another update, probably in that newsletter that I mentioned, before that show, before I go on that show, with an actual, like, when this is airing. So be on the lookout for that. I'm going to be talking about protest art. I'm going to be talking about Scareworks. I'm going to be talking about just me, who I am, what life is been like. So I'd be like, look, please be sure to tune into that. Please be sure to check out protest art. And without any further ado, let's get to our guest this week. All right, well, we have another exciting guest on the works with us this morning. He is the director of The Forest Hills, infamously the last guy who got to work with the great late Shelley Duvall. Please welcome Scott Goldberg onto the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. We've been trying to do this for a while now. I was at, I believe, the premiere or the second premiere of The
Sure.
Forest Hills. Can you, I guess, just talk about what this project is, how it came about, what it's about, and just describe your journey with it.
Sure. So the Forest Hill started with a concept. It was originally another film about this man, this elderly gentleman in his like late 60s who was befriended by a young horror wannabe actress, and she wanted to. He was like a washed up actor in the film in the original story, and she wanted to make a documentary about an old hag that was in the woods of Long Island. So a whole backstory and everything. And we wanted to film that kind of version. I found a producer in, I think it was Michigan. And after talking and communicating, there started to become a lot of red flags. And just a lot of weird conversations back and forth, and just a lot of anger on his end. It was just a really awkward situation. And I said, you know what? It came to the point like where we're just having a conversation on the phone and we're just not meshing at all. And I said, guys, I think it's best that we all just, not work together. So we stepped away from that. And then my producer friend Scott Hansen, who I've known from on Facebook, he said to me, he said, "Hey, why don't you come down to Atlanta and film the movie?" I said, "Well, why don't you come to New York and film the movie?" He's like, "Fine." So we kind of completely, and back in April 2022, I had to revamp the script. So I completely came up with a new idea for my friend Chico Mendez, who yeah, who basically, I knew could play the role and get crazy. And it just started off with like kind of a guy running in the woods, in his underwear and having killed a victim, and always an idea of like a farmhouse or some sort of cabin, and him being in isolation. So that's kind of where it started. And then it kind of just built from there. And we filmed in September of 2022.
I mean, people hadn't heard from Shelley Duvall in a long time. I mean, most notably, she was, of course, famous for The Shining and Popeye and Three Women. But outside of that, after The Shining, her experience on that set had been so rumored to be terrible uh, that she really kind of dropped from the limelight. What was your thinking on getting her on this project? How did that even come to be?
Sure. Well, I've always been a fan of hers, obviously, as anyone, right, with The Shining and her movies. Back in 2016, I saw the Dr. Phil episode, and I was like, oh man, like it was really hard to watch. But there was something about Shelley that I was like, I would love to work with her, because at the time, like I don't like working with actors who are like models and stuff. I like people who have a story to tell. And sometimes people and their faces and what they've been through and how they look have stories to tell with characters. So could never get in touch with her. And then in like 2022, when we were planning the film, I had the idea of, it's like, well, what if we can maybe get, Shelley Duvall. So I went on a website and I found Dan Gilroy, her partner, and then I called him. I think it was a call or a text, and then he said, here's Shelley's number. So I reached out to Shelley. We had a converse. Actually, I don't. I think I texted her and we called. I said, "Hey, I'd like you to be in this project. We're filming in New York. Are you interested?" She's like, "Sure." But the problem was, at the time, she was having trouble with her foot. I guess it was based on whatever diabetes she was dealing with at the time, and an infection that just got worse. And this was all private until obviously she passed away. People have talked about it and stuff. So I always wanted to keep her privacy private.
No, of course.
Um, and then we wanted her to come to New York to the Catskills, but because of her being in a wheelchair and not really having great mobility, she said, "Well, why don't?" I said, "Well, why don't we like maybe come to you if possible?" So that was the idea. And then Scott Hansen and his friends and crew member Steve Walenda went from Georgia all the way to Texas, and they filmed with her. They set like at her house. It was like a little cold, but she came outside for like 20 minutes and she said a bunch of lines, and originally it was just going to be her berating Rico, just cursing at him and talking him down and stuff. So, but as the film went on, we progressed and filmed more with her. We think we shot a total of 5 days with her. The original cut, which you saw, I think it was like 2 days. So we kind of wanted to build more of a story around her and her character and kind of give her an arc as far as like the beginning, middle, and end. So there's a conclusion with Mama that happens, and she's in the new film. She's mainly for the first 10 minutes, quite a bit, and then she's sprinkled throughout in other areas as well. So people will be able to see the full film, and she'll definitely pop up here and there in certain ways later on as well. So.
When she agreed to be in the project, was it just like the most exciting news you could possibly get?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it was John Russell Kring, the first AD, who called me. He's like, Shelley said yes, she wants in, and I was like, great. So yeah, I was nervous because the negotiations and trying to figure out all the details of like when can we do it, and how can we do this, and in what ways. So it kind of just evolved, as you've seen in the film. Shelley in the garage with Rico in the wheelchair, and Felissa Rose, who plays the doctor. diagnosing her with an illness, with a, an illness. Um, that was all in the beginning. And then she's like, I want to act more. So, we kept on kind of expanding on that. So there was 3 more days after that where we did that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if she wants to act more, please, stay.
Right. Of course. Yeah, it was fun for sure. She was such a beautiful woman, and and still wanted to act. And it's interesting too, because she I had a bunch of places like Uber Eats reach out, and I think like a ABC show, and they wanted to work with her. Like, they wanted to work with her, but I didn't know how to kind of communicate the fact that she was not, that she couldn't move and she couldn't travel.
Yeah.
So I just kind of said, hey, yeah, right now is not, she's not really, available at this time. So I wanted to respect her privacy based on the fact that what she was dealing with. So at some point she had become bedridden and was on hospice, as I think Dan Gilroy, her partner, had mentioned. But yeah, so it was just it's been a long journey for sure, and yeah, it's just weird, like, having her in your own film kind of thing. But I kind of separate the whole, in a way, Shining, like Shelley. I don't think of her as like Wendy Torrance. I think of her as like Shelley of today. It's just weird. It's like there's like a separation because of how, I guess, she looks, and how she looked, and how long time had passed, and just the difference. So I always hear like people say, Shelley Duvall, she's unrecognizable, which is true. She does have some features like her eyes, I feel, and stuff like that. But um, I've heard a lot of people comment on the fact that they say stuff like, you know, um, the way she aged is just normal. How people age. Now, obviously, smoking cigarettes doesn't help, things like that. Constantly, like she did, and being in the sun, Texas sun or whatever. But I feel like it's a true testament to her, like, never wanting to, like, kind of follow the Hollywood norm of like needing to be perfect, get Botox injections or anything like that. So I definitely feel that was a positive on her end. She was true to herself.
Did while you got the chance to work with her, did she share any cool stories from her past in Hollywood, or share any insight into some things that she had worked on?
Yeah, so on the final day, we had we when we had two final days. We were there for 2 final days with her. One of the days was just like we filmed a little, but we also like hung out. We brought her Mexican food. We literally just hung out with her, and we did like interviews with her. So on YouTube, I have like interviews that she did, that where she talks about the film and stuff. But she would also talk with Chico Mendes, the actor, about a bunch of other stuff, which I think is coming out on the YouTube channel soon, maybe this week or something. But she like talked about various things about like how her grandmother's like I think it was like she had the water on the table, so wet water. I said, oh, do you need something under that? And she's like, oh, like our grandmothers used to have like coasters or something to that effect. It's not like, obviously, I don't think that's like the dialogue, but she was like talking about like how grandmothers used to or all grandmothers used to have something where you could put, like, if something's wet, so there's not a ring on the table, like on a wooden table, when you put like a cold water down, it's wet or something like that. So things like that. But as far as stories from back then, I mean, she spoke very highly about Jack Nicholson and obviously Robin Williams. And she was overall, the stories, I guess, that I think there's like a, not a misunderstanding, but there's information out there where it's like people say that The Shining broke her, which she acted after the fact, and she did mention how much of a good time she had on the film in interviews that I've seen. So you know, um, and that's
There is some mixed reports on that, because I mean, it's kind of widely publicized how I don't want to say torturous Kubrick was to his crew on that shoot, but even like I remember reading something to the effect, like even the Scatman Crothers scene where he's just watching the TV in bed, they reshot it like 72 times,
right.
just to get him like all worn down looking,
Yeah,
So I do imagine like there's always fun on film sets, right? But I can
yeah,
still imagine, the fun being overshadowed by his unorthodox uh, directorial
right.
methods. Um, you know, Ironically, while you were shooting the Forest Hills and specifically Shelley's scenes, you kind of also had to implement some unorthodox directing methods. Can you kind of describe the weird limitations that you had?
Sure. So during the first two shoots, my daughter was very young at the time. She's 5, but when she was like, about 2.5 years ago, she was like 2.5, and COVID was right before that. So I was stay at home, because I have my own business, work from home, stay at home dad, literally just with her every day, all the time. And so it was very hard for me to kind of because she was still like in the toddler stage, kind of hard for me to travel and whatnot, especially with like limits, people being limited to like watch her. I didn't really have anyone to watch her if I had to travel. I don't like flying either, but if I have to, I'll fly. But obviously for Shelley, I did on the last shoot. But
As long as
um
it's not a Boeing.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so like I went down there on the later shoots. I think it was once or twice, but on 2 or 3 times, I think, yeah, it was 3 times I directed over the phone through FaceTime, and she found that very fascinating. So that was pretty cool. That it was that she found that very interesting. So
Well, certainly it's brings a new definition to working from home, right? You
yeah,
know?
for sure. Yeah,
So right before I saw it, I remember you had premiered it at Kevin Smith's Smod Castle, I believe it's called.
yeah.
Um,
Smart Castle Cinemas. Yep.
so I mean that's an exciting premiere. How did that go? I mean that must have been exciting to get that feedback from that room.
Yeah, for sure. So we had a lot of like cast and crew, and people. It was interesting. Like you know, the people who came out, I think, like for Cinema Arts Center and like Smod Castle when there was those two screenings, it was cool. Like there's a mix of people, right? There's like people who find out about it in the paper or find out about it online or have seen the trailer. Then there's cast and crew. And then there's also like a mix of, it could be, family and friends, and everything and whatnot. So um I look at it interestingly now because it's like with the screenings that we have coming up for this October, it's not really that. It's like now this is like grassroots. People are hearing about it. It's not cast and crew. It's not family. It's not some people who've maybe heard about it. It's like the actual horror community can see the film. Whereas like I guess it was a little different because we had some family there and stuff. People are excited. They're supportive. So I'm looking forward to seeing this October. The amount of people that go out and support her final film because now it's different, right? Now it's her final film. It's not Shelley's returned and whatnot. Now it's sorry, did I cut off there? Sorry, my phone. Okay, my battery said 10%. So now it's her final film. So instead of being her return film, so it's different in those ways.
Well, I mean, you certainly have a lot of momentum going into this October release. Um, what are you excited for audiences to take away from the movie?
I just want them to experience the type of film that I wanted to see. Like I didn't want to do like the same film, the horror that's done, like where there's jump scares or orchestral music or anything like that. Like I feel like when I look at films like John Carpenter or George Romero, and filmmakers like that, I'm inspired by that kind of stuff. So I don't think my films are like that, but like I like the music to kind of be like Carpenter-ish or like 80s or a mix of just feel like.
I actually got a Argento vibe from it.
Okay, yeah, I do like Argento too. Yeah, 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 very
Um,
cool.
I got a kind of Argento vibe from the soundtrack, which, by the way, is a pretty fun soundtrack for this film. Can you also talk about how the soundtrack came to be? Because you worked with some interesting people for that, right?
Yeah, so the soundtrack, so we have a musical soundtrack, which is the one that was composed by Mark Nadolsky for the actual film, and he and I, kind of communicated about like more of an '80s type of, vibe, trying to stray away from orchestral and big horns and things like that, and because I'm not a fan with that. Like when it comes to darker horror films, I think they need to be like have that old school feel. But and as far as the soundtrack, Nick Greystone, one of the executive producers, put out a like a motion picture soundtrack that was just released today, I think on Bandcamp. It's called the Forest Hills official soundtrack. So it has like bands that his band Demon Scar and Aiden, which was a band that was around like in like the like mid 2000s, like when My Chemical Romance was out. They were smaller, much smaller. Aiden was much smaller, but they had a song called Die Romantic, which was like a huge hit back then, like in the MTV days. But But yeah, so now he does like, independent stuff. Like he's like like an independent self-titled artist, so he's under the name William Control. So now he does like Depeche Mode type music. And he had a song, and we added that into the end credits. So there's a lot of new things in this new version that wasn't in the original cut. Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely excited to see the new version. What would you say is like the biggest change that you made from the first cut that we saw to the new one?
Sure. So the first like 20 minutes, 25, 30 minutes is 100% different. It's darker. It's the way the film is graded. It's very bleak looking, very dark, desaturated a little bit more so. Um, and so there's just a lot more difference. Like Rico is more of a conspiracy kind of guy who believes in like beasts in the woods and monsters and UFOs and things like that. So I kind of wanted to make it more, more of a unique thing, as opposed to it being where he's crying with his sister around like the other people who had head trauma and whatnot. So yeah, that's kind of the vibe. It's just a completely different vibe, and there's a lot more werewolves, a lot more Shelley. There's a lot more just basically darker vibe. It's much darker for sure.
So you mentioned the werewolf aspect. I didn't know if that was a spoiler or not, but since you mentioned it, I
Yeah,
have to ask, what is your favorite werewolf transition in cinema?
probably American Werewolf in London. Yeah, I'd say that one. The Howling I felt was a little, it looks a little weird, but no, but the American Werewolf in London. I mean, that's you can't beat that one. And then I got like really pissed off at like Cursed, like those like CGI ones. I mean, but back then, it wasn't that CGI wasn't that great, and like I don't like the underworld stuff or anything like that. But yeah, like American Werewolf in London is cool. That's my favorite for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I still like about American Werewolf in London too is even when he becomes the beast, it's not disconnected from the romance of it. I think the end of that movie is still very effective and touching, because she knows that it's him when he's
Mhm.
the wolf at the end. And my heart always breaks at the ending of that film. And I do love that they don't lose, who he is despite the really, the marvelous effects that they're implementing at the time. It's like
Right.
it does, for all of its explosive finale, it really is still very grounded in its emotions. That's one of the things I really still love about that movie.
Very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Um, so I mean, obviously we're coming up on this premiere. Um, it's an exciting time. Do you have any other projects in the works right now that you're working on?
Just some pitch decks. I have pitch decks and scripts that are ready to go. One called Montauk about Camp Hero and Montauk boys, and supposed mind control experiments, and how like it's just like kind of like an early '90s young kid who moves to this Montauk with his mother, and it's Halloween time, and it's really cool kind of concept. I have that, and also another concept called The Three. It's about like an underground bunker, very similar like Day of the Dead, scientists and human replicas and stuff, and the end of the world, and just isolation. So stuff like that.
So
I have a bunch.
documentary-esque.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So stuff like that. But yeah, no, but I think once this film comes out, hopefully there's some more projects. That'd be pretty cool. So for sure. So
Well, we're looking forward to it. I don't want to keep you too long because I know we were kind of shotgunning this one today. But thank you very much for coming on the show. I'm really happy that we're able to find some time to do it.
appreciate it.
Um, Looking forward to the new release of The Forest Hills, which will be released nationally, correct?
Yes, it will be released in the United States and also in Canada. I'm trying for Alaska, but we'll see if they get back to me.
Alaska.
Yeah.
It's too cold over there anyway for
Yeah.
the wolves, it's
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I know. I can't. It's too far walk too. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, you could catch his movie in select theaters later this year. Um, be sure to catch any of his upcoming films, possibly that Montauk one in the future. Maybe he'll come back on the works to promote it.
Appreciate it.
Um, Thank you, Scott, for coming on the show, and wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you, Samuel. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks.